Hello everyone, Riley here from Middle School Career Readiness. In today's video, we are going to be introducing Will from Travis County Emergency Service District, and I'll let him go ahead and introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Will Gammon. I'm a lieutenant with the fire department, Travis County Emergency Services District Number 1. We're the fire department that serves the areas of Jonestown, Lago Vista, a lot of Travis County, and Point Venture.
Okay, and what motivated you to join the fire service?
Um, I've always dreamed of being a firefighter. It was kind of a childhood dream of mine to do that, and I got kind of a late start in it. I didn't start going to school until I was 30. Um, and so it was something that my my wife had helped me convince me to pursue it and to give it a shot. And here we are now. I'm 47 years old, so I've been doing this for just around 15 years. And so it's been good.
Okay,
And I wanted
and
to help people.
yeah,
That's another thing.
and so you are a emergency service district, so do y'all run just fire engines, just rescues, ambulances? What apparatus does your department have?
So we have quite a bit of everything. We do fire and EMS. We also run our own ambulances, which is a question a little further on down. But yes, we have ladder trucks. We also have a brand new rescue truck. We also have a 32-foot rescue boat for water rescues. We also have a swift water boat, a variety of brush trucks, ambulances, you name it. Anything that our district or our community can encounter as far as calls are concerned, we usually have the appropriate apparatus to respond to.
Okay. And how many stations does your department have?
Stations, we have six total, five which are manned 24 hours a day. The sixth station we have is one of our substations, which we will staff due to inclement weather, or if we have a rise in calls that are out in that area, then we will staff that, and that's all dependent on what's happening in the district at that time. So we have six, but five are staffed 24 hours a day with personnel, minimum four on a truck, um, that sort of thing.
Okay. And now to the question, do y'all run ambulances? You did say that you do have ambulances. Are y'all ALS, BLS, a mixture of both?
Yes, so we're actually fully capable ALS ambulances. So we run two of our own, in addition to supplementing contracts that we have with Austin Travis County EMS.
Mm,
So we have a total of four ambulances. I'm sorry, we have a total of five ambulances. So we have three that we run, and then two in addition to that through Austin Travis County EMS. The way we staff those is typically two to ambulance, one medic at a minimum, and one EMT at a minimum. We prefer to have two medics on there if possible, but staffing dictates whether we're able to do that all the time. But
I should have asked this before, but can you explain to us what the difference is between ALS and BLS?
so basic life support encompasses, administering a limited amount of drugs for interventions, something like epinephrine for, say, anaphylactic shock. Obviously, the most common, which is oxygen. But when you get into the advanced EMT credentialing, you basically can starting IVs. You can help push additional drugs. It encompasses all the things that you would have as a basic. And then moving on from the advanced level, you would go on to the paramedic level, which would include cardiology, and EKGs, and pushing additional drugs, which includes narcotics and paralytics.
Okay. And throughout Travis County, what is your response area look like? Is it mainly rural, residential, commercial?
So we have a little bit of everything. Not so much. We do have commercial. We do have a lot of residential, and we also have a lot of rural area. As of right now, we cover 178 square miles of Travis County from the Cedar Park city limits
Mhm.
on the east to the Burnett County line on the west, and the Williamson County line to the north. The southern boundary is Lake Travis, where we patrol 40 miles of shoreline along the lake.
Okay. Um, and on a day-to-day basis, can you explain some of the gear that you carry on yourself for both EMS and fire?
Okay. Well, one thing I need to kind of explain is that I'm no longer on a truck. I work in the training division. So my job is now building trainings and working with the staff within the fire department, identify areas where we need to improve,
Yeah,
and create trainings based on those things. Also keeping up with the change in protocols and everything that we're doing. Um, but just to say on a day-to-day basis, the available gear that we have to us is for responding to medical calls, in addition to structure fires and wildland fires. Starting with the medical calls, I mean, a lot of people carry their own trauma shears, but everybody has their own, different things that they find useful when they need it. We have everything in the bags. We carry a BLS bag. We also carry an ALS bag. We have a pediatric bag, trauma bags. We have bags that hold additional supply of C collars, for cervical
yeah,
stabilization, and head blocks. Anything that we would need to do the job and to offer that medical support to, other crews and to the patients themselves. Um, those are used daily. Call just dropped now. They just took off for one. Um, During around fire season, which is usually the summer and winter times, we
hmm,
have trucks that are outfitted with, wildland gear, and we also have all the wildland support stuff on the trucks. So, depending on what the type of call is and, what dictates, what they bring as far as equipment and, apparatus is concerned, they use some of these things daily. They use some of these things on a shift basis. The way we operate is 48-hour shifts, so 2 days in a row, and then they're followed by 4 days off. So 4896s can be a busy time, but it can also be slow, or you'll have, days where it's the first day is the busy and the second day is a little slower, or vice versa.
yeah.
Um, and so I think my busiest shift in a 48-hour shift, we ran something like 20 plus calls, and it included a structure fire, brush fire, um, multiple vehicle accidents, and just numerous medical calls. And so all the gear that we carry, all the things that we have, and everything that we have to be knowledge of, we had to use that shift. And so
Yeah.
if we have it, we will eventually use it at some point. And it's just about maintaining it and taking good care of it. Um, you know, when we have structure fires, we don't always fight structure fires every day, but we do have to train, and we have to train the same way that we would operate in the field on an actual incident. So, even if we're not running an actual call, we'll still gear up, make sure that we're familiar with the gear, understand that, you know, there are limitations to it, and hopefully when we're learning about those limitations, they're on the training field versus an actual incident.
Mhm. And so you mentioned you were in the training side of it. Does your department run its own fire academy, or do you send recruits to a separate fire academy?
So we don't currently have a fire academy set up. We do have the capability of putting on a fire academy right now, but there are a lot of working parts in order to get that going. We're
Mhm.
still in the novice stages of getting that up and running. So for us right now, we will take applicants who have already completed their state training, which is they have received their certification through the Texas Commission on Fire Protection, and they also have to have their DISHES certification, which is the Department of State Health Services. Their EMT at a basic, level is what we'll accept. But we do look for people who have, ALS, um, credentialing as well. Um, I'm trying to think here. Also, yeah, with as far as like the Fire Academy is concerned, we do have newer students that have gone through a program that we are affiliated with, which is through the State Fire Marshals and Firefighters Association. And
Hmm.
so we put them through their program, which is, encompasses all the requirements that the Texas Commission on Fire Protection requires. And so it's an already built system that we use, and we just use that as a template to put them through that school. And as long as we follow everything from start to finish, then we can get those guys credentialing. But that's how we're doing it for right now. In the meantime, until we do get a fire academy up and running, um, but we do have a training tower, and we have, all the things necessary in order to get people going through that. And it's been a great resource also for our on-duty crews to continue that training as well.
Yeah. And so, when you respond to a structure fire, what are the things that you look for, like right when you arrive on scene?
So I'm going to go off of like what I would do. So,
Yeah.
this is an answer to question number 7. So I would want to know what hazards are present. I want to know what the severity is or the potential for severity. Knowledge of the incident action plan and or changes to the incident action plan. Communicating those said changes to my crew to ensure they know the knowledge and strategies and tactics that we're going to be using to mitigate the incident. Ensuring myself, my crew, and all personnel under my direct supervision are operating safely and effectively. So that's usually the first thing that I'm thinking about, trying to get a good size up and trying to paint a big picture for the things that we could encounter on that call.
And so I know sometimes with EMS calls, the fire truck may get there before the ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
So in a handoff between a fire crew and an EMS crew, what's some of the things that you're transferring between the crews, some information that you're transferring?
So, I mean, it's not going to be too dissimilar from we're doing a transfer of care to the receiving facility. But specifically to your question, if a fire engine arrives on scene first, and then it's followed by an ambulance, what we'll do is we'll try to ascertain what treatment was initiated, what information that they've gathered pertaining to the patient specifically, and what they were able or not able to do, or something like that. And so when we get there, they're usually staying on scene and until we clear them. But basically, it's just to be in a support role at that point. Um, but we also carry paramedics on our trucks as well. So oftentimes, a fire truck will be there, but they also have the same capabilities that the ambulances have. So
Hmm.
we do run paramedics on our trucks. So oftentimes you're going to have equal credentialing across the board. So it just allows us to get early hands on the patient and early interventions right away. And they're able to identify, is this a sick patient or is this a non-sick patient? Are they critical or are they non-critical? Are they stable or unstable? And how we play into that picture. And so it's important for them to get that information early on and be able to relay that to um, the medics who would ultimately be transferring the patient to a hospital.
Okay. And let's say you have someone who has just come in who's just gotten the EMT or paramedic certification. What would be your approach to training or to mentoring someone who's recently gotten their either Fire 1 or Fire 2 certification or recently gotten the EMS or paramedic certification?
So, yeah, how am I going to mentor or give tips to people joining the fire service? Is that what you're asking? Is that kind
Yes.
of reference to question number 21?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Um, I do have tips for people who are wanting to start or get involved in this. Start by doing research on your own is usually what I say. Reach out to your local public or private agency to see if they offer a program for people interested in pursuing a career in fire and EMS. Um, if you're in a high school, inquire about emergency service education offered at the school. So we offer training here with the department, but we also are contracted with our local high school, which is Lago Vista High School.
Mm,
And so what's fun about that is that we have a program in house that can help get students in their senior year credentialed and be ready to start applying to EMS jobs um, upon graduation. Okay, and when they're 18. So if they're under
mhm,
18 at the time, they would have to be 18 in order to take the National Registry test in order to gain that EMT certification. Um, but when they get their birthday or have their birthday and they turn 18, they can go ahead and test out for that. And if they pass it, then they're now one step closer to being an EMT and starting to apply for jobs. And whether that's in the fire department or wanting to just be standalone EMS, um, they're ahead of the game, so to speak. Um, I would say also attend job fairs. We also, do stuff with the school, and anytime a job fair is open, we usually like to have a representative from the department to go out there and to do exactly what you and I are doing right now, but in a,
mhm.
on-site, face-to-face setting. Maybe we'll bring like some bunker gear, allow people to try stuff on to kind of show them what, day-to-day life is like as a firefighter, and kind of set the expectation. Um, this is a highly sought after line of work. So, I usually encourage people, don't be afraid to reach out
Mhm.
to, your local department, your local EMS agency. If you have family or friends that are, involved in that and they've been doing this for a while, inquire with them. From my experience and what I like to do in kind is help people and help get them point them in the right direction. And I'm very receptive to when people want to do that kind of stuff. And um, I think it's important that we get people in this line of work who care about others and care about doing a good job and being there as a support structure for their community and just for the public in general. Um, and I've always felt very I was given the attention that I was seeking. And people were very enthusiastic with wanting to help me get to where I am today. And so, yeah, and I think when you finally make it into this field, I think it's your part at that point, to help
Mhm.
mentor the next generation and reciprocate what was done to you. Or if you didn't feel like you got good guidance initially, do what you think is going to be best and that you wish was done for you, and you do that for the next generation to ensure that we're getting capable and good people in this line of work. Does that answer your
Okay.
question, or
Yes.
did I answer
Yes.
something a little different?
No, that answers the
Okay.
question. How do you stay current or up to date with evolving medical protocols, treatment guides, as well as technology in the medical field?
Let's see here. Um, So our medical director, we have a medical director that we work under, okay? And he is a licensed physician and he oversees our department and several other departments and agencies. And basically anything that we do medical related uh, falls under his license. So, we have to do continuing education. We have to prove, annually that we are continuing to do um, the work within the scope of our practice or the things that we could be called upon to do, however infrequent they are or frequent they are. We are operating, and he has to ultimately sign off that we're able to do that because, he could be held liable because we're, operating under his medical license. And so we also have a company that we work with that does our protocols. They stay up to date with trends and new evolving technology and different treatment paths within EMS. It's made up of board certified, physicians, and they all consult with one another. And they work and they interact with our medical director. And they talk about new things, new developments. If things are, kind of staying the course, no changes really happening along here, but they are talking about, hey, this is something that we're starting to see trends in, and this is something that we would suggest. They discuss that, and if it's something that they want to implement, then we would go ahead and we would revise our medical protocols Then they roll that out to our field medical officers, who in turn pass it on down to anybody who's on a truck. Um, and then we go through and we train on that, make sure that we understand all the new and evolving things that have been, updated in our medical protocols, and and that's how it goes, And there's a
Yeah.
checks and balances system here, and a way for us to ensure that we are staying up to date and up to speed with all our capabilities and what we can do in the medical field.
Okay. Uh, can you describe a challenging or a difficult call for you and how you handled it in your career in fire service or medical field?
Yeah. So I have a variety of calls that I run, and they can be, complicated structure fires. They can be complicated vehicle rescues. They can also be, complicated cardiac arrest, CPR, that sort of stuff. A lot of those things are very stressful calls to be on. And so maintaining your cool and taking a leadership approach to where there's a clear person in charge and running the call. Um, I can go off on a bunch of those, but the one that really comes to mind for me, and a unique thing with many small departments, is the allocation of resources. Knowing who you
Hmm.
have working with you, knowing what trucks have the capability to do what, location, understanding your jurisdiction and your response area. Um, One thing that I found challenging, and I think I handled it okay, was the allocation of resources. My station received several separate calls all at one time, and I was able to get on the radio with dispatch, reallocate calls, say, I want to put this one over here. We're going to respond to this one. Go ahead, clear this guy off the call, put this one on that. And we were able to do that. Dispatch was able to relay that information appropriately to the other units, who all acknowledged, and they all made their calls, and everything went smooth as far as no delay in response, further than what we would have had had I not been able to do that. And so that was,
Hmm.
for me, that was a thing where I was able to take, the available resources that we had and divide and conquer in a way that supported the mission of the department, which is to get emergency services to people in a timely manner. And so um, that was just something I thought I did pretty good, and I was happy about, because it was a little stressful when it happened,
Yeah.
and we want to do good, not bad.
Hmm.
So I
Um,
did go back to my that last question that I jumped to. What's your approach to
yes.
mentoring and training new EMTs or paramedics? I have my answer written down right there. So if you want me to respond to that later, I can do that as well.
Okay. Um, what does the rank structure of your department specifically look like?
Okay. Well, I mean, we can start from the bottom. Obviously, if you get hired here, you are a probationary firefighter, unless you were coming over as a lateral hire or a specific hire. So, like, if a chief was being hired, you wouldn't come in as a probationary firefighter. But if we're starting from the chain of command, it starts at probationary firefighter, which is anywhere between 6 months to a year. And then you become a full-time firefighter. The next step up from that would be a driver operator. Okay, so they operate the apparatus, obviously. Next would be a lieutenant. Lieutenants, and that's the first officer position as a fire truck, or your initial officer position. A lieutenant is also has the same uh, equivalent rank as field medical officers. So a field medical officer is typically assigned to an ambulance, and they're essentially the lieutenant of the ambulance. After the field medical officers and lieutenants, you have captains. Captains are usually assigned to a ladder truck, and after captains, we have battalion chiefs, then division chiefs, assistant chief, and then the head chief of the department. Battalion chiefs are responsible for the shift crew and all the trucks that operate on that shift, whereas the captain is basically day-to-day operations, but on large calls that you know uh, that demand a command presence, we will always have a battalion chief there. So we have three battalion chiefs, one for each shift, and then yeah, division chief all the way up to our fire chief.
Okay. What, as a lieutenant, what does leadership mean to you in the fire service?
That's a good question. I think it's important to establish relationships, establishing and maintaining trust earned from coworkers, and you do that through consistency. Initiating continual training to improve in all aspects of fire and EMS. I like to try to meet people at their individual learning level. Um, I know that there's a lot of ways that people learn differently. I'm one of those people. Um, I wish I had, you know, I wish I had certain things when I was growing up that, kind of understood or acknowledged my learning style or my the way I, retain and pick up information. So meeting with people, trying to learn and understand who they are as an individual, and creating those relationships can help. You can get that information from them, and you can learn to tailor training to where they're most successful. And you know, part of learning is making mistakes. And I'm not impervious to that. And I think mistakes are expected. It's important that mistakes happen because what do we learn from? I feel like you can learn from mistakes as long as you learn from them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tell the truth, be empathetic, lead by example, care for your crew, and listen.
Okay. Um, so if you're responding to a structure fire, we know that there are several different tasks that are needed on a structure fire, but how do you prioritize or organize those tasks?
That's a great question. I always say follow your protocols and your department's, protocols regarding rules of engagement when it comes to structure firefighting. Okay. Um, but we have a lot of different things that we have in place. We have little acronyms that help us remember the priority of things. One of them is LIPS, LIPS, and that stands for life safety, incident stabilization, property conservation, and societal restoration. So, anytime you arrive on a call, the priority is life, and that's not just the life of the victims or the people involved in the incident, but also the people responding to. Um, there's a lot of inherent danger that can happen. There's a lot of hazards that are not foreseen right away, and you're already automatically going to be thrusting yourself into a risky situation. We like to limit that by having protocols in place that stipulate what we do when we find this. What do we do when we find this? If there is no life safety issue, then the next priority is the incident stabilization. We want to stabilize the incident. We want to protect it and contain it from spreading. So we have exposure control. If there is a structure fire and there's something on fire, we want to see if there's any adjacent properties or other, things that can catch on fire, and we want to make sure that those are protected if we can do that. Um, Once that's controlled, then property conservation is our next priority. We want to save what we can. We don't want to just destroy everything. A lot of people lose all their possessions, and we have to be mindful of that and empathetic of the fact that a lot of people will lose a lot of their things in a fire, and that's pretty tragic. So we will do everything in our effort to save and to preserve those things, and maintain, these things that people hold so dear sometimes. Um, if we're able to do the former two. And then societal restoration simply means trying to restore everything back to the way it was beforehand. So before the
Mhm.
call happens, we want to make sure that we put all these things back in place. We clean things up. We don't want to leave garbage behind. We don't want to leave a horrible mess for these people. They've lost a lot of things. We want to be mindful of how we treat their property, and the extra cautions that we take to to ensure that we're offering that service as well. Next thing would be, building on lips would be a CAN report. Once we've identified all four of those, things potentially beforehand, then we are going to go to a CAN report, which stands for conditions, actions, needs. So if I'm the first in truck and I get there and I see what's going on, I want to relay that information to the next incoming unit so that they know what we need, what the conditions are, what they're calling for. Um, and whether I need to make a decision to upgrade the call or, leave that for the incoming, IC, the incident commander. And then the actions that we're taking and what we could use to, help us mitigate the incident, So that would be the needs portion, whether that's tools, personnel, or specialty equipment, or even other responding agencies.
Okay. And there are several different types of fire suppression systems, whether that's using water, foam, different things. In what scenarios would you use these different items?
So mostly we use water. All of our responding engines, we carry 1,000 gallons of water on board, and you can do quite a bit with that. The drivers, have a important job to maintain, obviously, the safety of themselves and their crews. They are responsible for getting the crews safely to and from the incident. And in the event of a structure fire or wildland fire where they have to offer and provide water, they need to know how to manage their water supply, know how to get a secondary water supply, know how to communicate what their supply level is, during firefighting activities, and they have to troubleshoot a lot of the different things. So water is the biggest thing that we carry. All trucks are outfitted with foam capabilities as well. And so what we put is Class A foam in there, which is almost equivalent to that of like dish soap. And so
Hmm.
it uses less water, which is great for extending fire operations. It's a great way of smothering the fire by removing the oxygen element from it. Um, but our primary things that we use is just copious amounts of water and just cooling objects down through water application. Foam we will use oftentimes during brush fires because those are great in areas where there's not a whole lot of water supply and you have to, you know, uh, use you need to extend that as much as you can. So foam is great application for that and conserving water. And we also carry ABC extinguishers. Do you know what those are? I mean, they're just your typical
Yes.
household fire extinguisher, which are dry powder, dry chemical, and they put out, organic fuels. They put out chemical. They also put out electrical fires and such. So we also have that at our disposal too. If we get to a fire where, or if we get to a call that's coming out as an electrical fire, I'm going to want to make sure I do a good size up because I don't want to necessarily pull a whole lot of hose down there and waste time doing that. If all I had to do was grab a water can or a ABC extinguisher, extinguish something right there, make it safe and not have to do more property damage. Those are all things we got to be thinking about. But we use
Hmm.
all those tools if needed. Um, I've even used a ABC extinguisher on a car fire one time. Um, as long as you know how to use it, and it can be effective, and it's in your protocols to do so,
Hmm.
yeah, we'll take advantage of that.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier whether knowing whether you should upgrade the car or leave that to the incident commander. In what scenario would you or the commander upgrade a call?
Great question. Lack of information, obviously. When we get a call, it's oftentimes very incomplete, very basic, or no information other than passerby was driving, saw something like that, and called 911. So oftentimes we're running blind. We don't have anything to go off of, and so depending on the type of call that it is, I also take in mind knowledge of similar past calls, knowledge of my district, location of the call. If we've responded to this house in the past, is this a common call that required, additional personnel? Um, all those different things. And then, of course, getting on scene, realizing that you need more assistance or something like that, then we would always
Hmm.
do that. That's usually as a last resort because, you know, when you notice you need something and then call for it, it's usually, you're already behind the eight ball, and so
Hmm.
we'd like to anticipate those, needs before they arise. And so I like to do those things en route because it's very easy for me to go ahead and upgrade a call and then get on scene, realize I don't need that. I can get on the radio and I can downgrade that call. And I can say, hey, we don't need you. You can go ahead, or you can reduce from code 3 to code 1 so that you're not running lights and sirens and you're running at a just a normal traffic speed with no lights and sirens because
Hmm.
what lights and sirens does, it gets
Hmm.
people, it gets their attention, and
Hmm.
we make we make the roads more dangerous when we have people making, you know, quick maneuvers, and so we'd like to downgrade if we can, but obviously, if there's something that we anticipate the need for additional personnel or upgrading the call, you could always do so early on and then cancel them if you don't need them. So.
Okay. Um, can you explain to us what a RIT or Rapid Intervention Team is and experience that you've had with like RIT operations and basically just what that is?
Okay, so yes, RIT is a acronym, obviously, for Rapid Intervention Team, or RIC is another one that they use is Rapid Intervention Crew, and it's simply saying that you have a crew assigned to go in and retrieve firefighters who get into um, a life safety issue if they're responding to a call. So if we're in a structure fire and we have interior crews fighting fire, we always have a rule, there's two in and two out. So we always have two people go in and we always have a backup crew on a backup line of two people as well. And if we go two into a building, we always come out with two people, right? Um,
Mhm.
but oftentimes, I don't want to say often, but sometimes that there's a need for a rapid intervention crew to be dispatched or be called to action because one of the attack crews has the fire has gotten behind them, or they've lost water, or they got trapped, or they got pinned while doing a search or something like that. Well, then they call a mayday, and then all operation stops and ceases, and essentially the focus is put on getting those firefighters out of there. Okay,
Mhm.
so we don't stop all operations entirely. We still have people controlling the call, but we also have a whole dedicated team of people to now focus on getting those firefighters out of there. And so I've been part of rapid intervention crews and teams on multiple occasions, but fortunately for my experience, I haven't had to go in and pull anybody out. And I think that's also because we do fight fire aggressively, but we also fight it in a very safe and calculated way to where we're
Mhm.
not putting our crews at unnecessary risk. So if there's no potential for, you know, saving a life, whether the survivability profile is zero or we know that there is known occupants that are not in there, um, we're going to take less big risks, which put our firefighters in danger. And so I think that approach, in addition to being vigilant, firefighters, I think we've been very fortunate to not have any of those incidents. Of course, I want to say that knocking on wood because I don't want to, you know, have that happen. So
Um, what is the difference between interior fire attack strategies and exterior?
there is a multitude of different things. Um, what do you think is probably a more challenging fire or safety wise, interior or exterior operations?
Uh, I'd feel like interior would be more dangerous than
You would be
being
correct.
on the outside.
there's so many different hazards that happen and that take place inside of a structure, not the least of which is you can't see anything. You have things
Hmm.
on fire there. You're going into a territory which is completely filled with smoke that you're unfamiliar with. I don't know where you live, and I couldn't tell you what your house layout and the plan of your house is.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, you have a lot of things. You have to deal with your air supply. We all wear, SCBAs, which are our self-contained breathing apparatuses. And anytime
Hmm.
we're interior on any structure during a fire, we all have to be wearing those things. So we have to be mindful of how much air consumption we have. If it took me 10 minutes to get from this point at the start of the house, at the front entrance, to the back of the house where the seat of the fire is, I need to be looking at my air consumption, make sure that I have enough air to get me out of that place as well. And if we go in two together, we come out two together. So if my partner has, full air and I'm low on air, we need to leave together in spite of how much he has.
Hmm.
Um, so there's the problem with disorientation. There's also the problem with, air consumption, heat, if you haven't found the fire yet. There's a lot of different things that can go wrong. Um, Wildland firefighting is like firefighting outside. I don't need to be wearing my SCBA. I don't need to be breathing my bottled air if I'm in
Hmm.
an area where there's no fire. Um, and so there are different hazards that you will experience if you're doing defensive operations or doing exterior firefighting. Obviously, nighttime makes a big difference as well. If we're responding to a night structure fire, I can't always see everything that I can fall into, trip over. Um, is there wires running through here? Am I operating underneath power lines? Anything like that. All these are hazards that are present that, can be either interior or exterior. But there are subtle differences that you have, um, but I would say safety first and foremost is the key to those two different types of firefighting. Um, it is far more dangerous to do interior operations because you have the risk of collapse of the fire of the building,
Hmm.
um, and then you just have guys who are inside what we call an IDLH environment, so immediately dangerous to health and life. Or sorry, uh, ID, immediately dangerous to life and health. So, yeah, that's what we say. Anytime that they're in an
Hmm.
IDLH environment, we want to make sure that they are operating as safe as possible, right? And so, if you know what our priority is, if we have a known victim inside of a house, um, and we know what the survivability profile is based on what the fire and the fire behavior is doing, and the location of the fire in relation to where the person is, um, then we have to take that risk because life safety is our first priority. And if there's a survivable life that can be pulled from that building, then we want to take every step that we can do in order to do that.
Okay. And what, how would you say it's different operating in the fire service as a lieutenant versus as your normal firefighter or even your probationary firefighter?
Like most officers, we all started as firefighters, okay? And we're exposed to various different leadership styles. An officer has the ability to get the best from or hinder the progress of the crews under their supervision. Um, so, an officer must abide by the protocols and the current incident action plan and ensure that their crews understand these as well. And that begins by leading by example and establishing the standard. Um,
Hmm.
Developing and displaying good habits is just as contagious as bad habits. Requisite knowledge, responsibility for the safety of themselves and their crew. Um, there's a lot of differences between the two. We're still firefighters, but um, hopefully your officer has years of experience or has demonstrated that in their time that they are a trusted source to lead people. Um, And again, it's training with your crews, building that confidence, building that crew integrity and that rapport, so that I know what you're going to do on scene, Riley, because you and I have practiced, many times beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
anticipating this type of call. And now that this call has happened, I know exactly what you're going to do. You know exactly what your partner is going to do. You know what I'm going to do, and we all are working together to build a good rapport, so that we don't have to constantly be on top of each other. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so there are a lot of differences. Um, but I think the most is the responsibility. Um, it's tough because when you have guys and you have, crews that you have to supervise, I'm responsible as anybody. You're responsible for your own personal safety, but ultimately, if I order something, I need to make sure that they're going to be safe while doing it, and that
Mm-hmm.
they're operating within our incident action plan, and they're operating within our protocols and our guidelines to do things in the safest manner. So the responsibility, I think, is the difference there, for me at least.
Okay. Um, what would you
Excuse
say
me, I'll
are
just
some
drink real quick.
things? Yes.
Sorry.
What would you say are some things that uh the higher ups look for when they are wanting to promote someone to a lieutenant or any officer position? And do you have any tips for someone who is looking to be or who is going to be promoted to an officer position?
Yeah. Um, I would say never stop learning and never stop training. Um, this line of work is constantly evolving. Stay up to speed with the latest trends and always try to take away something new from each call. Try to avoid keeping up with others if you feel for any reason that you're not ready to promote. Um, don't feel like you need to do it because, hey, I was hired with this guy and he's ready to go. He wants to promote and all that stuff. Don't do it on behalf of somebody else, because they're doing it. Do it when you're ready. And you may not be ready. Some people don't necessarily want to be officers. Some people want to be a good firefighter. Some people want to be a good driver. And those are just important as a good officer.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a good firefighter, I know there's a lot of things that I don't have to tell him because he knows how to do it or she knows how to do it. Um, they're a good driver, an effective driver, a driver who has takes a very serious approach when it comes to driving safely on the road, operating all the rules of the road, and maintaining that, and pumping fires, and their ability to troubleshoot and backpedal when something goes wrong. Um, all those are important traits, but I'd say it's important to do that and to want that for yourself and not do it to keep up with somebody else. Because I think that's where you start to fall into um, things where you're not ready. You may be able to test well and you may test high or something like that, but are you truly ready? So make sure you're doing it for yourself. Take the necessary time for you to feel confident about your ability to do the job as, before stepping up to lead others. Shadow as many officers as possible and take away the tricks of the trade to assist you in developing your specific leadership style. I know there's a lot of people who try to mimic, how they were, led, when they were going through either school or they were a rookie firefighter or something like that. And I know these people outside of work, and I'm just like, who is this? This isn't who you are. You know, um, you can do stuff while still being who you are, and developing a leadership style that works with you. And as long as it's receptive by other people, then I think that's important. Develop your own personal style and not, you know, not be somebody else. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be my tip to people looking to promote.
Okay. And the last question, do you have any tips or anything you feel people should know before joining the fire service or emergency medical service?
Yeah, so I kind of answered this question earlier, which was seeking out your own research, talking to people at your local fire department. I don't know where you live, but where I lived in Austin, I had a fire station just down the street from my house, and I
Hmm.
went over there and I knocked on the door, and I had a really nice lieutenant come out and spend 30 minutes just talking to me about things that he did. And coincidentally, he was in his 30s when he started, so it was actually somewhat promising, and I felt it
Yeah.
was a good thing or a good omen for me at 30 to talk to someone who went through the exact same thing, and seeing that he's a lieutenant on a truck now, um, and where I could possibly be, and so yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to people, inquire about different, school programs. If you have a school program in fire and EMS, job fairs, all that sort of stuff. Um, but yeah, we love it when people come by the station, and, hey, I live down the street here. My son loves fire trucks. We love getting to show off to the public all the stuff that we get to do. And we're privileged to do this, not everybody gets to have a very fun, cool job that is, held in high regard as being a firefighter or an EMS worker. Um, and so we don't take that lightly, and we want to make sure that we are living up to the image and the reputation that others before us have set, and continue to carry on that tradition. So yeah, just reaching out to people, and we love to sit down and talk with you and help kind of develop a path that works for you and a timeline that works for you, and try and be empathetic and understanding of all the different situations that you can run into, and then offer meaningful solutions. um, you know you don't have to get in fire, you don't have to get in EMS. There's you can be in the hospital, you can be look to be an RN, you can look to be an LVN, which is a licensed vocational nurse. You can be um, an ER tech, which is essentially what an EMT is, but they
Hmm.
work in the hospital setting. I had a couple students in my class last year who wanted to become flight medics, and we showed them, hey, these are different agencies that we partner with, that we work with on a, day-to-day basis. This is a private helicopter transport. This is, the county transport.
Hmm.
There's subtle differences between those, but this is what they require if you want to be on a helicopter and doing this for patients. And let's start exploring those routes. But I think it kind of just starts with your own personal research a little bit, and then reaching out to people in your local community. And if you have family or friends that have been in this line of work, sit down with them and pick their brain, and get their advice and some of their suggestions, and then ultimately come up with a decision that you'd like to do, and we'll help you out.
Hmm. All right, well, that's all the questions I have for you today, Will. Thanks for uh, coming out and doing this interview. Very much appreciated. For those of you watching, make sure to go check out the description. I will have a link to the Travis County Emergency Service District 1. I will have their website link in the description, as well as a link to all of our affiliates, as well as uh, a link to donate if you would like to donate. It helps us get better equipment, better cameras to film. Be on the lookout because we do have some in-person interviews coming soon. And that's going to end our video. Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
Riley. You were a fantastic host and great interviewer, and I wish the best of luck to you. And reach out to me if you need anything ever, okay?
Thank you. I will.
Have a good day.
Me too.